And we are live. How's it going, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest episode of Rangers Review. Steven, we are at episode 59 now here on the show. And I know the first question that many of you guys probably have, whether you're watching live, you're in a live stream here on YouTube, or listening on replay, wherever you get your podcast, you're wondering where in God's name have Steven and I been? So to quickly recap it, which is the first thing that I want to do, one, our sincere apologies, especially when the Rangers are now in the Eastern Conference Finals. The last thing that we want to do is miss any pods. We want to record right after the Rangers won in Game 7 against the Carolina Hurricanes. But unfortunately, and I have myself to blame, I was away this past week in North Carolina with a group of amazing YouTubers. And because of that, I simply had literally zero free time. The only time that I was able to do coverage on my Mets channel that many of you guys know of was late at night because the Mets are currently out west right now. So I've been doing post-game shows for them starting around between 1 and 1:30 plus a.m. Eastern time. And of course, Steven, who lives in Ireland, it's around 6 a.m. his time. So that's starting his workday. So unfortunately, we just haven't been able to align our schedules really since I would say midway through the Carolina series. But we're happy to be here now. And hopefully we shouldn't have any hiccups now until the remainder of however long the Rangers progress here in playoffs. But again, I appreciate everyone that's been so patient. And my apologies once more to everyone that has been missing out on the pods. Trust me, I've been as frustrated as all hell as you guys have been too, trying to get out these pods. But thankfully, we're here now. I'm beyond ecstatic to be talking about some awesome Rangers hockey. Even with how the last game has faltered, I know that this team is destined for greatness. They've proven me not just wrong, but they have exceeded expectations for, in my opinion, and for the opinions of many, in so many different ways. And we're really excited to break down our reactions through not just, breaking down a little quickly on Game 7 for Carolina, because we haven't talked in a bit, along with getting into Games 1, 2, and 3, recapping the Eastern Conference Finals to this point, and also taking a look at some prospect updates that we'll start with first, because Steven is chomping at the bit to talk about these Rangers prospects. So we'll get into that here shortly. And of course, folks, if you were here in the live stream on YouTube, we'll try to answer some of your comments before the end of the show. And if you guys want your comments answered here in the live show, just make sure you're subscribed to the Rangers Review YouTube channel and have those notifications on when we are going to be live for our podcast so you don't miss a beat. But again, Steven, let's get into it, my friend. How are you doing today?
Good. It's good to be back and recording. Yeah, it's been
very
a while.
Good to be back.
Yeah, Rangers are 2 wins away from a Stanley Cup final, man.
It doesn't even feel real to me, especially as you know, as many of you viewers don't know, though, unfortunately I'm not been able to catch each of these games live, so I've had to watch them on replay and breaking down all the key highlights and all that fun stuff because my schedule just simply has not allowed me. Trust me, I prioritize my teams 1,000% every time, but this past week was just an anomaly of a week for me, and I'm so excited to break down your thoughts because we haven't talked in a bit now, and see what you people in the live stream have to say about this team thus far, too. The fact that this Rangers team, Steven, again, is only 2 wins away from the Stanley Cup Finals. You and I said it best heading into the year, right? Not just end of the year that, one, the Rangers should make playoffs, and we'll see what happens from there. After the trade deadline, their great success down the stretch of the season, it was like, okay, hopefully they can make it out of the first round. We did not think the Rangers would have made it out of the first round after being down 3-1 the way that they were. It did not seem feasible, yet this team defied the odds, then went up against Carolina and managed to beat them in impressive fashion, no less, in Game 7 in Carolina to now advance to the Eastern Conference Finals, and have quickly made work of a Tampa Bay Lightning team that has dealt with their injuries to Braden Point and some others. But again, a team that the Rangers dominate throughout the regular season. And to this point, Tampa on paper, and again, knocking on wood, not trying to jinx anything as they have Game 4 tonight that we'll be previewing later in the show. This team has been on another level between the young kids and between the veterans stepping up when we need them to most. A lot of guys are on paces now to surpass the likes of Mark Messier, if they haven't already. Same with Adam Graves and plenty of other Ranger greats in the 94 season for most points and a playoff. So I just got to say, Steven, I'm blown away. It has not fully kicked in for me yet. It has been nothing short of a pleasant surprise. The fact that this team is this close to the finals, again, they're not there yet, so we have to focus on the now. Nothing is guaranteed, of course. We know that by now here in playoffs. But they are chomping at the bit. They're getting closer and closer, nipping at those heels of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And all I can do is smile. I mean, I just feel spoiled. I genuinely feel spoiled at this point. Even after Game 3's loss, this team has just made me feel in such a way that I haven't felt in a very long time.
Yeah, and looking at the Carolina series, every game was won by the home team up to Game 7. And coming into that series, we knew that the Rangers only had to win one game on the road because the Carolina Hurricanes don't win on the road. And they left it to Game 7. You know, they came into Carolina and they absolutely destroyed them. Yeah, they didn't give them a shot. They were up 4-0, like in the third period, and they finally got some goals at the end of the game, but Rangers winning that handily 6-2. And then you go up against the Tampa Bay Lightning team, who I've had conversations with people. I've been doing Twitter Spaces before the game during
Yeah, you're having
intermission.
a lot of fun with
Voting.
those. It's been nice to see you
Yeah,
doing them.
it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. People are interacting. It's in the absence of us being able to record last week, that was a good substitution.
Perfect pivot.
Um,
Yep.
but we were able to just prepare for the Tampa Bay series, and there was this overall feeling even before game one that the Rangers could do really well against this Tampa team because the Tampa Bay Lightning don't play defense as tight as the Carolina Hurricanes. They don't have the pace the Carolina Hurricanes have. They don't have the ability to clog up the neutral zone, which is a very effective method against this Rangers team. Um, and then game one, I was hoping for a win. You never really expect to win in the conference final going up against a two-way Stanley Cup champion. But the way the Rangers were playing, that game, it was a 6-2 win. It's not even an exaggerated. The score line was reflecting the way the Rangers played, and their pace is really a difference maker this series so far. Of course, we lost game three, but this so far has been the easiest series out of the three. And it sounds crazy to say that about a conference final series, but look at the way the Rangers are playing 5-on-5 against this Tampa team. They were able to with quick passing and skating to move the puck, to transition the puck from our zone into their zone, often within 2-3 seconds. And it's really catching Tampa off guard. And that first game was a 6-2 win, was great. Philip Hedel gets 2 goals. Kreider and Vetrano score early on. Panarin and Zibanejad contribute as well. It was just such a great game by the team overall, 6-2 win. But I would say game two, even though it was only a 3-2 win, game two was the better game. The Rangers were able to push even harder and to really lock it up in their zone, to not give Tampa a chance. They scored early on a power play, which is a very cheap power play, by the way. 2.5 minutes in, Ryan Reeves was called for slashing, but that should have been offsetting minor penalties for Reeves and Maroon. Kucherov scores on that power play, but take that power play goal away, and the Rangers were just dominant from start to finish. Um, Miller ties it up, hard shot from the point, gets blocked. He gets the rebound, shoots again, boom, 1-1. And then I think the second goal, the Capo Caco goal, um, is probably my second favorite goal of the series. My favorite goal of the series is probably my favorite playoff goal in Rangers history, and it's the second goal by Philip Hedel in game one.
Magical. To
Um,
think that Filipino now has what, the same amount of goals they had during the regular season?
I think he has 7 now, and he had
He has
8 in the
7.
regular season.
Yeah, so he's right
So
around there. I mean,
yeah,
talk about a playoff performer. This is how
but
you make sure that you stay on this team is what
yeah,
Filipino's doing.
but that second Hedel goal,
Oh,
as I
beautiful.
call it, the shift. I don't even have to explain to Ranger fans the
Yes.
shift.
So nice.
The Rangers pinned them in their zone for almost 2 minutes. Sergachev was on the ice for a minute 50. And I always watch these sequences where the Rangers have consistent zone time, where they push their where they pressure their opponent into the zone. And this happened in the second period where you have the long change, so it's a little easier once you get in that situation to keep your opponent in the zone because the bench is so far away. But the Rangers never capitalize on it. The Rangers never follow it up with a goal, and this time we did. But my second favorite goal of the series so far was the Capo Caco goal in game two. Not because it's Capo Caco, but just the way that goal was created again. It was an even strength goal, but the way they were passing it around, it looked like a power play. And Adam Fox is a magician. Um, Adam Fox and Mika Zibanejad are probably the players that Lundqvist was missing in 2014. If you look at the 2014 team that went all the way to the final, um, the 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 player that led the team in points that season was Ryan McDonough with 17. Right now, Mika Zibanejad is tied. Mika Zibanejad has the third most by a Ranger in a single postseason with 24 points.
And
Adam
he's not
Fox,
far behind Messier either right now.
no, he only needs 6 more points to catch Messier in second. Brian Leach, of course, number one with 34. Both of those players set those numbers, got those numbers in 94. But Zibanejad in third place with 24. Adam Fox in fourth place with 23. Yeah, Ryan McDonough in 2014 when we made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final. 25 games, only 17 points. A defenseman leads your team. Chris Kreider, by the way, 15 points. Artemi Panarin, 15 points. So the scoring, Chris Kreider, Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin. The scoring comes from different players. Andrew Copp is fifth on the team with 13 points in 17 games. So you get that contribution from different lines, from different players.
I would like to touch on, not to cut you off, just because you were on the topic of Fox and how vital he's been, of course, not just with this rock solid defense that we've seen from Keandre, Schneider in the little time that he's had, and Lindgren just being an absolute, or somehow getting stronger even with his injuries. I mean, that's been the case with Ryan Lindgren, right? But Foxy, I do know, has the most points of a defenseman through 20 games in playoffs in NHL history now with 23. Love the number, coincidentally, with his own jersey number. And he passed Brian Leach, no less, who had 22 in 20 games. So, again, just one of the many records that the Rangers are either climbing up towards or are breaking here in this current playoff run.
Yeah. And he's currently on pace to hit 50 points in 43 games, which would make him the third fastest defenseman to hit 50 playoff points.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean the production is there. You know, we can talk about Zibanejad and Fox as true playoff performers now. You know, there's no argument. Chris Kreider, of course, 10 goals this season. Zibanejad, 10 goals. That's, I think, the first time in 40 plus years the Rangers have two players with double-digit goals in a single playoff season. And more importantly, Chris Kreider now tied with the great Rod Gilbert for most playoff goals by a Ranger ever with 34.
I love that every time that we normally do a pod, or at least a lot as of late, you have been emphasizing how Kreider, especially with the production this season, has solidified himself in Rangers history, that his number will be hitting the rafters by time shortly after he retires. And it's funny because we tend to see some debates on that. And don't get me wrong, I know that we have, like any other normal sports fan, I've discussed rather hot topics, hot debates, but I really don't think that's one. And the way that Kreider has continued to handle himself and has provided that goal scoring into playoffs is something that cannot be underestimated. He's scoring every other game right now. You said he has 10 goals so far in the playoffs, correct?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because it's continued with that net front presence, along with if you have your 2-on-1 chances, maybe he'll get a snipe here and there. I mean, he has just been such a perfect balance and exactly what you want from a playoff performer. There are not many players, obviously, that will have, say, a great end season where they say score a career high, like 40, 50 plus goals. And then come playoff time, they're shelved what they once were because they were combated differently by the opposing team, right? They knew how to really find his game and to take full advantage of what he originally had setting up to the point where he just could not be anything more than a shell of what he once was. But Kreider's the complete opposite. And yes, he hasn't, let me put it this way. Kreider isn't scoring every game, but we shouldn't expect him to. But on a goal per every other game pace, that's huge for this Rangers team, especially when you haven't had consistent offensive production on the goal scoring front from someone like Artemi Panarin, who has had their chances early on, even with him dealing with injuries as well. I mean, it's that much more vital that you have your top guy that didn't just stand out, has been your unsung captain, and is literally just a captain without the C on his jersey. I don't think there's any debating that. And is quickly proving that, yeah, my playoffs are by all means just a product of what you saw during the regular season. This is not a fluke. I'm Chris Kreider, and I am a bona fide goal scorer here in the NHL.
Another thing, and this is a stat that's never talked about because it's not really something that's tracked, but overall totals in a single season, Chris Kreider is now tied with Adam Graves for most goals in a single season with 62.
Yeah,
They
that's
each
fair.
had 52 goals in the regular season and 10 goals in the postseason. Adam Graves that year in '94 played 107 games in total. Chris Kreider so far only 98. So he's gonna break that record. Chris Kreider's been doing everything that you could have asked for. 2 or 3 more postseasons, and Chris Kreider is going to lead the Rangers in every category. Right now, in games played, he's he's fourth. Henrik Lundqvist has 130, Dan Girardi 122, Mark Stahl 107, and Kreider is now tied with Derek Stepan with 97.
Wow.
Of course, tonight he will play career playoff game number 98. He's going to reach at least 101. Sorry, he's going to reach at least 100. Yeah, well, no, yeah, he's going to hit over 100 because either we win in 5 and we go to the final, or we lose the next 3, it will still take him to 100. So no matter what happens, Chris Kreider is hitting 100 total playoff games played this season. Goals, he's tied for first. Points, he's in 5th all time. These are numbers for Chris Kreider, who's only 31 years old. And when you look at the regular season, in goals right now, he's 10th. Games played, he's 19th. Points, he is 14th, and he still has, I think 5 years left to go on his current contract. So he's going to finish top 5 in every major category, both regular season and postseason. Chris Kreider's number is going up in the rafters. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Thank you, Steven. This is why we got the stat boy in here to break down. In case you have any doubts, in case you're feeling a little uncertain,
I do like that the argument has died down a little bit. I mean, it's still there from some people, but I think people are starting to notice that it's not far-fetched at all.
I think it's just silly to even make it an argument to begin with, instead of just enjoying what he's doing and realizing that if you do break down the numbers the way that you most certainly did, all indications are that yes, it is not a matter of if, but rather when. And knowing how Chris Kreider's career has, progressed to this point. Now, I don't know about many of you Ranger fans listening or watching here for the show, but Chris Kreider, other than Henrik Lundqvist and Matt Zuccarello, I mean, when Kreider came up through Boston College into playoffs, he was automatically my favorite player. Growing up for me personally, I always admired, players of smaller stature, like Zook especially, because I myself, I'm 5'5", and, naturally I'm going to be a short king in comparison to others. But one thing that was always my strong suit in sports, and that's what I've always progressed well in, was my speed. And Chris Kreider, being the high flyer that he was right from the beginning, and a jump in playoffs and make an immediate impact, just completely jaw dropped me as like a young, 12, 13-year-old at the time when he first broke into the NHL. And watching his development and with all the inconsistencies that he's had with his goal scoring, being a guy that's basically getting a breakaway per game but has struggled to finish. This year, again, taking things to new heights, adapting his game. We all know how amazing his net front presence has been, but now having the proper pieces around him and the proper, more than anything, and again, something I feel like gets brushed under the rug a lot, is the coaching staff. This system is exactly made for Chris Kreider, between not just 5-on-5, but on power play. And as long as these two things continue to pair together, there's no denying that Chris Kreider will go down as one of the better Rangers in their history. He's already off to an amazing start now at the age of 31. But Steven, I know that you want to get into prospects. So before we do that, I kind of like the way that we're just kind of briefly going through these Ranger games. So that way we can share more of our raw thoughts versus just the statistics. Now, we missed a good amount of games. So I figured briefly, I'm going to just touch on game 3 here, because this is, of course, the biggest negative out of the Rangers' first 3 games of the Eastern Conference Finals. And this was a game, again, that was frustrating. And I hate to be that guy to just nitpick one person, but Jacob Trouba, in my personal opinion, kind of helped single-handedly lose the game for the Rangers there in game 3. And it was pretty inexcusable as well. And I will give him the benefit of the doubt. One of the 2 power plays that were scored by Tampa that were from a Trouba penalty, in my opinion, was not warranted of a penalty. I thought that call was ridiculous. Now, granted, arguing about officiating, especially in playoffs, it's not going to get you far. We know that story by now. We went through the Penguins series. We went through Carolina. We know how these debates work. But Trouba, again, is someone where he's been a blessing for this team, and he's also been an issue. And for not just the fact of having 3 penalties in game 3, but in the manner in which he had those 3 penalties, especially right after the Rangers had their power play and scored originally earlier in that one. And for them to just completely collapse. Look, the Rangers in the first 2 games against Tampa were Mr. Resilient. They came back and they were just dominant. But in this one, even with an early lead, I bite my tongue every single time the Rangers have like a 2-0 lead. I don't have nearly as much confidence as I should in comparison with a team, say, when you're down by a goal or 2. Why? Because the Rangers have proven that they're just such a superior team when they're facing some type of adversity. And with them up on an early lead, we saw there, thanks to the likes of Mika Zibanejad with his patent-pending power play goal. He has 6 power play goals already this playoff, and they're almost all identical, doing his best Alexander Ovechkin impression over these past couple of years. And that left dot, passing Vasilevsky with ease. Beautiful passing by the Mets there. Not the Mets, the Rangers on the power play. And then getting into the second goal, power play, all 3 power play goals. Chris Kreider in front, nice little rebound. He buries it exactly what you want from that net front presence. And then Nikita Kucherov, who unfortunately gets a snipe down on the right side there in the left and the right dot with the lefty shot for the power play. And that was one of the 2 goals that Tampa would score on the power play, with Trouba being the guy at fault with his penalties, pardon me. But then when we get into the third period, because those goals happen all in the second, nothing happened for the Rangers in the first. They had some nice looks. I was liking what I saw from the Rangers early in Tampa. And Tampa, like you said earlier in the show, Steven, they haven't once given me the feel that and I understand Braden Point has not been in the lineup. I know that Point in the lineup, that team gets so much better, as do the Rangers when they're fully healthy as well. We're accustomed to that. So I'm not trying to give, if it's going to be this way or that way. But point is, again, that this Tampa team has looked vulnerable since the jump. Even against Carolina, I was very impressed with the Rangers against Carolina. Of course, it was that back and forth home and away to be the difference, other than game 7 where they stepped up most, of that being in the Rangers. But this Tampa series just has a completely different vibe. This time, they're not as hard-hitting as we've seen, especially against the Penguins at times, with not just the hard-hitting, but the forecheck as well. Tampa, as you mentioned, with that neutral zone presence, hasn't been to the same extent, and the Rangers have really been able to execute and get into that zone 5-on-5 with a strong fashion. But then between the penalties and just a complete lack of consistency there in the third period, led to Steven Stamkos having an open slot there for a 1-T, a bomb for a power play goal to tie it right in the beginning, in the first minute or 2 in the third period. Then in a heartbreaking fashion, I'm watching this game while I'm at a restaurant. And look at the time. There's like 45 seconds left, right as it's starting to trickle down. Andre Palat gets a beautiful pass from Nikita Kucherov, like a beautiful backdoor one that Zibanejad just simply couldn't handle there on the right side. Gets through Igor, and that is how the game ends. Igor had another phenomenal game for the Rangers. He had 49 saves on 52 shots. I mean, Igor has single-handedly, if it isn't for him, the Rangers don't go even past the first round. We know that. Not that I want the Rangers to be so reliant on their goaltender, but we all know how amazing he is, and thankfully he's on our side. But that third period really rubbed me the wrong way, not just between the Trouba penalties, but this team just looked like a step behind. Tampa finally started to get their legs pumping. It was by far their best game of the series, and it wasn't even their prettiest game either. They did not play a full 60, but neither did the Rangers, and that unfortunately helped lead to their demise. So I think the point I'm trying to make, though, Steven, is that even with how frustrating that Game 3 loss was and losing momentum, there's nothing worse than losing a game, especially when you lose in the final minute of a game. I mean, you don't have any time to try to rebound and salvage your play in the remainder of the game, right? Because there's no time left. So now you're focusing on this. The Rangers have their injuries as well. Steven, I know you have something to say quick, so go ahead to that, and then we'll move forward.
Couple of points. First of all, Braden points out with injury. Did people make the same argument about Zuccarello being out in 2015 when we lost to Tampa? No, really.
No. I'm not saying it's an argument. I'm just saying I understand it.
It has been. I mean, the never-ending list of excuses every time the Rangers win a game this playoffs. It's it's hilarious.
You won't be hearing them from me. You will, of course, be hearing them from the opposing fan base.
Now,
that's natural.
Regarding Game 3, to put a positive spin on it, when you go up against 2-time Stanley Cup champion, you're up 2-0 in the series. They play their first game at home. Of course, they're going to go all out. Of course. I think them going back to 12 forwards and 6 defensemen definitely played a little bit of a part in it.
Yes.
But also, they gave it everything for 60 minutes. They played their best game of the series. The Rangers played their worst game of the series, and still it took them 59 minutes to get the game in a goal. It took them 59 minutes in their best game against our worst game.
It took 59 minutes and Jacob Trouba just handing everything on
Well,
the platter. That's how it
my
felt for me.
the penalty that annoys me the most is the one that Truba took on a 4-minute power play.
Oh, that was ridiculous. I mean,
That
that was
that
just the
showed our
worst timing.
momentum. But look, the Rangers were under pressure. The third period, they were playing like they were defending a lead when the score was 2-2. That annoyed me as
Yeah.
much as the Truba penalty. But coming back to what I said earlier, Tampa Bay played their best game. They gave it 100% every shift, and the Rangers were able to keep up with them for 59 minutes.
In Tampa.
There's no way the Tampa Bay Lightning have the energy to do that again tonight.
That's fair.
And what I'm going to say next, look, it might sound stupid if we lose tonight, but I don't see the Rangers losing game 4 because the Rangers are not going to be as bad as they were in game 3, and Tampa is not going to be as good as they were in game 3.
See, Steven, I love the optimism. I really do. But something when it comes to health, I agree with you. If this team's healthy, I fully agree with you. But that's why I want to pivot to the injuries here because, again, a lot of you guys are listening to this podcast and have further information than what we do at this point in time. But the Rangers practice today, not all that encouraging. A little bit, yes, and more so, no. Barclay Goodrow is not practicing today, so we'll find out probably last minute if he'll be in the lineup or not. I would say that there is a possibility still that he will be, but knowing that he hasn't practiced in the past couple days, there's some slight concern with his injury. And I believe, wasn't that after the block shot, correct?
Yes, he blocked a shot with his foot.
Yes, and he just hasn't been the same. And this is, again, a Goodrow who hasn't been healthy all playoffs for the most part because of the injury that he sustained prior in the beginning. But not just him, but also Ryan Strome stepped on the ice today for practice. Didn't practice yesterday, but was on the ice today. Was only on for 5 or 6 minutes, then left the ice. And according to reporters, from what we saw here as we're talking the live show, did not look comfortable. So that is another thing that is not appealing. Do I think he'll play tonight still? Yeah, I would say that there's a solid chance. But if we don't have both Ryan Strome and Barclay Goodrow in the lineup tonight, that is concerning for me. Okay, even with the second line that has been as rolling as much as I would like it to, as I'll be breaking down the numbers here shortly, that is huge gaping holes in your lineup that Tampa can, by all means, try to execute on because you have to change everything up then with a lineup that has been thriving for the most part. Even though the kids didn't have their best game in game 3, what they did in games 1 and 2 completely outweigh that. And the one positive, however, that we have seen in practice, as some of you guys have now said here, is the fact that Sammy Blais today is having his first full practice with the Rangers, full contact, not wearing the red jersey anymore. And we'll find out. Many of you guys, like I said, that are listening, watching, you probably know by now if Sammy Blais is either 1, starting in game 4, or 2, going to be playing in any of the games going forward for the remainder of the series. But if the Rangers get him back, that's exciting. There's concern because of the fact that he hasn't played since quite literally the beginning of the season, coming off of a serious injury. It's going to be rusty. Blais is known for playoffs, and he has been practicing for a bit, which is positive. But you simply cannot compare one practice to an actual game, let alone playoffs of the Eastern Conference Finals. So it's a tall task on him, regardless on when he'll return this lineup. But what's your take, Steven, on in a scenario where the Rangers do not have, at minimum, one of Ryan Strome or Barclay Goodrow? How much of a factor do you believe that would be in the Rangers' success or lack thereof here in game 4 and potentially in the games going forward?
I think Ryan Strome we can replace with the way the Rangers are playing. Ryan Strome is not bringing the type of game that Tampa Bay struggles with. Goodrow, on the other hand, Goodrow is essential to our bottom 6. It depends on who you replace Ryan Strome with. I assume Andrew Copp would move to center, and you would add a winger, a second line of Panarin, Copp, Hunt. Might not sound too enticing, but Hunt does play the type of style that has worked well against Tampa. So that's an interesting one. If Goodrow's out, I expect Kevin Rooney to be his replacement.
Yeah, I do too.
Of course, injuries will change things a little bit, but even if you change 1 or 2 players out, the Rangers are just playing better than Tampa at this point.
So. And they're playing in a fashion that, again, we saw the Rangers dominate Tampa throughout the year. You know, they were the better team throughout the regular season, which was by all means a breath of fresh air against the Tampa team, who again have won back-to-back cups. They entered the season without those crucial pieces that without them, Tampa doesn't win those cups, in my opinion. They knew that they needed to get the Barclay Goodrows of the world. The same thing with the Blake Colemans, etc. Like losing those pieces that make your lineup that much more deep is insane. And for this team, again, for the Rangers to be coming out and going toe-to-toe with the back-to-back champs, but in all means, in a fashion where, as you said it best, Tampa had their best game, but it took that final minute to truly solidify their best game.
Yeah,
This,
and
this Rangers team
the
just feels
lines,
comfortable still.
if you look at the lines, it's not hard to see why. You know, Tampa's top two lines match up against our top two lines. That's normal in the playoffs.
Yes.
But we've seen this throughout the years. Depth wins you rounds in the playoffs. Tampa Bay won 2 cups with a third line of Coleman, Gord, and Goudreau.
Phenomenal third line.
Their third line, see if I remember what exactly their third line was. Their third line was Ross Colton, Corey Perry, and who was the third guy on the third line? I think Alex Killorn.
Might have been Killorn. Yeah, assuming he wasn't in the top 6. Yeah.
Lafreniere, Hidal, Kako is a better line.
Well, yeah, you could argue that they've been the best line for the Rangers outside of line number 1, obviously. 100%.
And then that fourth line is Maroon, Belmar, and now Riley Nash.
Yeah. And Riley Nash was picked up on waivers like twice this past season.
Yeah. They played 7 defensemen. They played Jan Ruda instead of Riley Nash for games 1 and 2. Even with Riley Nash, a Maroon, Belmar, Nash against Mott, Goudreau, Reeves, our fourth line is miles better. I never expected a sweep. So losing game 3, the way we lost it, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'm glad that we're sharing this perspective. Like I said, I've been chomping at the bit to want to talk to you about this because for me, it was gut-wrenching to see them lose in the sense that the overall third period collapse. And again, knowing that you lost every time that you give up a goal, like at the end of a period, it always drives me nuts because you know that is something that normally can be a momentum swing. However, I do like your approach on this as well in the sake of, yeah, we saw quite literally the best from Tampa so far, knocking on wood that it doesn't get much better than this, but the Rangers never looked like that they were completely like lopsided. We saw that lopsidedness in the first series against the Penguins. We saw a little bit of it against the Carolina Hurricanes, but nothing overly drastic. It really
the third period
in game 7.
Third period in game 1 against Carolina. It's the most outplayed we've been in a single period. And game 3 wasn't that bad. Tampa was always going to win at least one game. They might win a second one. Who knows?
This series could easily go 7. It could end in 5.
It could go. It could go 7. But look, even if we lose tonight, let's say, I hope not, but let's say we lose tonight, right? Now the series is a best of 3 where we play games 1 and 3 at home. And the Rangers at home are a much better team than the Rangers on the road. I'm not worried. I don't see Tampa beating us at Madison Square Garden.
There's nothing to indicate that they would, considering the Rangers have won how many? 8 straight at home?
Games 1 and 2. The only home game we lost was game 1. The only home game we lost
was game 1 of this playoffs.
It took the opponent triple overtime to get it.
Yeah, that's saying a lot.
And that game shouldn't have gone to overtime because Hidal was robbed of the goal.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yep.
So technically, you could argue that the Rangers are undefeated at home in the playoffs. I'm not worried. For Tampa to eliminate us, they have to win a game at the Garden. I don't see that happening. If we win tonight, it's over in 5. If we lose tonight, it goes to 7. That's how I sum it up.
It just it genuinely has not kicked into me. And again, given my schedule, that's part of it. But man, oh man, this year's playoffs has just been such a whirlwind. I've never experienced something like this before, too. Even when the Rangers, of course, had their run in 2015, it felt nothing like this. 2014, 2015. I mean, it's such a bizarre feeling, but in a good way, like a dominant way. And
Well, the difference is, Tyler, that this team is much more well-rounded than those teams in 2014 and 2015.
Uh, let me say this to give benefit of the doubt. The Rangers were unbelievably well rounded in their cup run, but they did not have enough top dogs. They were
Yes.
like all second lines, as you said best. Now the Rangers are more well rounded in the sense of having that balance of top dogs. And again, this is without the likes of getting as much production as we would probably like to this point in Artemi Panarin. He's that big guy that's been sticking. Panarin hasn't been playing bad, but he surely isn't playing his best hockey right now either. I think we all are fully aware if you've been watching these games. Even if you just watch the highlights, you can understand that one. So to get him and to get him at any level higher potentially than what we've currently seen, I mean, it's really hard to argue that this Rangers team isn't basically inevitable to do some fantastic things.
Yeah, and when you get to this stage of the playoffs, there are no guarantees. There are no easy wins. That said, I like our chances.
I would like to emphasize once more, because again, a large portion of you guys watching on YouTube or listening on replay have already watched at least Game 4. So if the Rangers get completely pistol whipped for whatever reason in Game 4, we are by all means the ones to blame. I've been knocking on wood like this entire show, Steven, trying to make sure that I'm not feeling overly confident, but it's hard not to still be confident about this club in an impressive fashion with the manner that they have approached this Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, they've went above and beyond what my initial expectations were. And maybe that's shame on me. Maybe after that Game 7 in Carolina, I should have known better, saying that, yeah, I mean, like this team is truly rolling right now, and they absolutely are. But Steven, there are plenty of numbers I do want to break down for the Rangers on who's been producing the most, just statistically, and who I would like them to do a little bit better potentially in this series. But I know that you really want to talk about prospects. We had meant to do that in the beginning of the show. So why don't we take a quick pivot? We'll take a quick break here from this playoff talk, because there are some significant Ranger prospect updates that Steven's going to be sharing with us. Then we'll get back to breaking down some playoff numbers here for you guys, and then eventually answering some comments as we then look ahead, of course, for Game 4 and the remainder of the series.
Yeah, so prospect updates in the OHL, the conference final between the Flint Firebirds and Windsor Spitfires went to 7 games. Brennan Othman against Will Cooley. Will Cooley came through in the end with his team. They won Game 7. And last night they took a 2-1 lead in Game 3 against the Hamilton Bulldogs. So far, Cooley has been contributing on those wins. He got the empty net goal to seal it last night. Yes, I think 2 goals, 1 assist in 3 games. Really good for Cooley and the Windsor Spitfires. So they are only 2 wins away from going to the Memorial Cup as the OHL champion. So they play Game 4, I think, tomorrow at home. In the
Cooley,
WHL,
I just want to touch on this quickly. Cooley, with what we've seen from him, with what he was as a prospect when the Rangers drafted him in the second round in the Elias Anderson trade, he really is giving me that feeling that he will take a quick jump in similarity to what we've seen with Braden Schneider. Should he have a role? Should there be room on this team? Cooley feels to me at least that he will not take an unbelievably long time to adjust to the NHL level.
I think the biggest adjustment for Cooley is that he cannot have the same impact in pro hockey that he does in juniors. Yes, he's scoring a lot of goals and he's contributing offensively, but he's also 20 years old in the OHL, so he's expected to be that dominant.
He's going to go from being that top dog, the older kid in the group, to being the youngest. Yeah.
Remember, Ty Ronning at age 20 scored 60 goals in the WHL.
Yeah, and now he's unfortunately been struggling, in his pro career at this point. Yep.
It's a big jump. I think Cooley can definitely make it, but it'll probably be a 3rd or 4th line role, similar to Sammy Blais in a way.
Similar to Sammy Blais and Brendan Lemieux, but a more increased version of Brendan Lemieux. I think
he's probably more skilled than Brendan Lemieux. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on that one.
But yeah, they're 2 wins away from making it to the Memorial Cup. And if they do make it to the Memorial Cup, there is a decent chance that he's going to play against another Rangers prospect, because in the WHL, in the conference final, it was Dylan Garant, the goalie, and the Kamloops Blazers who took on the Seattle Thunderbirds and Matt Rempe. They were both drafted in 2020. Dylan Garant was a 4th round pick. Matt Rempe was a 6th round pick. Rempe 6'8", 225. a massive guy, and Garand is a very talented goalie who both actually signed their entry level contracts already. Seattle Thunderbirds pulled it out of the fire in Game 7 in that conference final, and now they are up 2-1. I think they're up 2-1 against. No, sorry, the series is tied 1-1. Tonight is Game 3. Seattle Thunderbirds are going up against the Edmonton Oil Kings. So yeah, interesting there. Garant and Othman unfortunately out, but still two prospects in the playoffs there. And then the last bit of prospect update is a player that is probably the most polarizing when it comes to this fan base, because half of you don't want to hear about it, and the other half cannot wait to hear more about it. But
that's the perfect way of describing him. It really is.
Yeah. But yesterday it was reported that Vitaly Kravtsov has turned down an offer by Dr. Chelyabinsk. His expectation is to come back to North America to play in the NHL. Whether that will be with the Rangers or with another team, we'll have to wait and see. But he won't be waiver exempt, so that might make it easier for Kravtsov to sign a contract with the Rangers if Drury offers one, because they cannot just send him down to Hartford, which was his biggest issue, of course, in previous seasons. Interesting to see what's going to happen there. The Rangers do need some contributors on cheap contracts, because the cap is not going up by much. The cap is only going up by $1 million, but we have those new contracts for Fox and Zibanejad kicking in. $8.5 million, I think, for Zibanejad, $9.5 for Fox.
And this is not talking about any potential free agents returning, which is everyone, of course, that the Rangers acquired at the trade deadline, which we'll talk extensively on once we get into the offseason.
We'll dive into that after the playoffs are over. But yeah, interesting to see that Kravtsov has been showing up in the news again. I'm looking forward to seeing how Rempe and Cooley do in their respective finals and juniors, though.
By all means, keep me posted. It's awesome to see them get this experience too. Obviously it's still in juniors, but the point is that if you can at least get that intensity level higher than what you normally get during the regular season, that can at least help you, even if it's a little bit, as you are then going to be adjusting eventually for the NHL, or at least the AHL for that matter. Just getting accustomed to, some harder paced hockey, faster pace as well. But yeah, thank you for that prospect update, Steven. I appreciate it. Vitaly Kravtsov, I mean, my goodness, we're always talking about him every year, and it feels like we're talking about him for a different reason every year. It's a seesaw with that man, but we'll see what his future holds, and we'll discuss him more on when the time is right. But what the time is right for right now is talking more about the Rangers and what they're doing in playoffs, because in this Eastern Conference Final, Steven, if we look through point production alone, and again, that's why I was okay with us not breaking down each individual goal and breaking down the numbers and stuff in the ECF this far, because one, I know that we're breaking down the first 3 games, but two, I have it here to give you guys an idea in case you're unaware, which you should be if you've been watching the games. But Adam Fox, who again, 23 points, but has 5 points, just 5 assists in these first 3 games. The puck is always on the tape of that man. He's keeping things beautifully in the offensive zone. I don't think I need to rave anymore about Adam Fox. He's one of the best defensemen in the league for a reason, and I couldn't be happier that he's a New York Ranger. Then we have Chris Kreider. Kreider again, 2-2, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in the first 3 games. Love to see that Kreider continuing his pace to be that bona fide goal scorer and that huge top 6 presence for the Rangers, no matter the series. Artemi Panarin, someone that I would like to see more of, and maybe we will see some more of tonight as well, depending on the health status of Stroman or others, especially if the Rangers lose Stroman on that second line. Maybe that will help warrant Panarin to have a little bit more of a pep in his step, knowing that he has to carry that line a little bit more than what he's accustomed to, per se. But Panarin, 1-3, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points so far in the series, which is strong. 15 points along with Kreider and playoffs so far. Foxy with 23. Kopp, 0 goals, 1 assist. That's it. I would like to see some more offensive production from Kopp too. But again, Kopp hasn't been playing bad. I just want to see the second line roll a little bit more, and that'll be indicative on the structure of it. It's funny. I actually don't have Zibanejad's numbers in front of me, Steven. So by the time I'm breaking down these numbers, can you just tell me how many points he has so far in the first 3 games? I appreciate it. But we have here Frankie Vetrano, 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists. We saw him have that nice goal to start off the series. 11 points so far here in the playoffs for the Rangers. He's been a blessing. And Philip Hedl didn't have just one of the best goals, I feel like, in Ranger history, but he has 3 points total, 2 goals, 1 assist, 9 points. Hedl, who was not known for offensive production by any means throughout the regular season, has taken his game to another level, and it couldn't come at a better time with all the controversies and all the uncertainties with him and his future. And while nothing's a guarantee, it's safe to say that Filipino has really done the absolute best that he can possibly can with the limited time that he has to make sure that the Rangers heavily consider keeping him and not partying with him in this year's offseason, regardless on how playoffs end. Then we have Ryan Strome, who has not looked good so far this series. He has 0 points. Again, not that points mean everything, but from your second line center, I want more offensive production. You're in the heart of that offensive line, even with Panarin leading the way. I mean, Strome's still bringing up the rush. I want to see better with him 5-on-5 and with his zone entry. He's been a little frustrating, but again, I know he's now dealing with injuries, so we'll see what his status is. Has 9 points so far here in playoffs, tied with Hedl. Alexi Lafreniere has 9 points in this year's playoffs, 2 assists. Loving Laffy. He's just that high-energy guy in the third line, is getting the nitty-gritty. And again, for a first overall pick like him to have this type of style of play that he has, he's adjusted far better than maybe what some people would have initially expected with Laffy here in this playoffs. He by all means, he plays hard-nosed. He plays to his size, and he does not back down to absolutely anyone. Then we have one of my favorite players for the Rangers for quite a bit now. It's K'Andre Miller. He has been so high-flying with his offensive, making sure when to know when it's right to pinch into the offensive zone. But his defensive, his back-checking is simply superb. Along with Adam Fox, you can rightfully argue that K'Andre Miller has been the best defenseman for the Rangers in this year's playoffs, or at least one of them. He has truly been special. Has 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, and 7 points total in this year's playoffs. Capo Caco with that awesome goal and the assist so far, 2 points in 3 games and 5 points total in this year's playoffs. He's on the best pace so far in this year's playoffs in any series. That's phenomenal to see. And then Jacob Trouba only has 1 assist, 5 points in this year's playoffs. And then I had Lindgren as well as 0 points, along with some others. But point I'm trying to make, though, is what we're seeing, guys, is, Steven, do you know exactly how many points Zibanejad has for the first 3?
Yes, 2 goals, 3 assists.
Okay, so he's leading the way there with 5. That's awesome.
Sorry. 3 goals, 2 assists.
3 goals, 2 assists. Okay, I thought it was 3 goals. I was almost certain.
Yeah.
And they've been beautiful.
5 assists, so they're tied for 5 points in 3 games.
Good. Yeah, I think I didn't write down Zibanejad's numbers because I wrote down Fox's with 5. For whatever reason, I just got them confused. But no less, big takeaway that I want for the Rangers heading into Game 4, depending on the status of that second line, is I want to see more production there. This Ranger team has been really balanced, but I really want to see more from Panarin. He hasn't been playing bad, but again, you still want the absolute best from the best player on this roster, simply put, outside of Igor Shesterkin. And the reason why we talked a little about Igor is because he's just a broken record. I mean, what more needs to be said about Igor other than the fact that this man is breaking records and is quite literally doing things that goaltenders just simply don't do this early in their NHL careers, even with KHL experience. He is simply jaw-dropping. He's a high-flying puck mover. He has 3 assists so far in this year's playoffs. I mean, I trust Igor better than some Ranger forwards, if I'm being honest, with playing the puck. Like, that is how good he's been, along with making highlight reel saves on a night-to-night basis, always keeping the Rangers in it. But my biggest takeaway, again, the biggest thing that I want to see more of based on what we'll see from line 2 is, again, let's get some more production. That's a big thing. Fourth line, they don't have any points so far in the series, but again, I'm not expecting points from that fourth line. I just want them to keep killing it. Tyler Mott is always putting a smile on his face. I love his ability on the PK and 5-on-5. And yeah, just that second line. That's the big question mark.
If we don't keep Tyler Mott next season, I'll be very disappointed.
I will be. I think, and I agree with you in the sense, and again, we're not going to get on this tangent right now, but I think it's fair to say that Tyler Mott is not nearly as replaceable as someone like Frankie Vetrano. And again, this is not to down him, and we're not going to get in this hot debate right now, but when you based on what is working for this team, what do the Rangers need right now, what is their future based on playoff contention, you need a Tyler Mott. You absolutely need the same way that the Tampa Bay Lightning the past 2 years have needed a Barclay Goodrow and have needed a Blake Coleman. To different reasons, a little bit, but the point is, it holds true.
Speaking of players you need, I think this Edmonton Oilers team is one of the most lopsided teams I've ever seen in the NHL playoffs.
The fact that they managed to get as far as they did, as someone who was rooting for Edmonton, they've been my team for like a decade now in the Western Conference. But yeah, they've always been lopsided. They have
the fact that they get swept in the conference finals while having 2 players who are over 2 points per game this postseason is ridiculous.
And let's not forget the likes of what we saw there, not just from them, but Hyman. Hyman had a phenomenal playoff. Evander Kane was a goal-scoring machine until he matched up with the Avalanche and stood no chance.
Evander Kane leads the league in goals in the postseason.
Exactly. And how many goals did he have in against the Avalanche? I don't think he had much.
Well, he had 13 in total. Let me check that for you.
Because I'm really curious, and I'm glad he brought up the Avalanche because look, whoever advances to the Stanley Cup Finals, whether that's Tampa or the Rangers, we will be. I think it's fair to say that we will be all happy if they can just play a competent series. This Avalanche team has been due, and certain similarities. And Steven, what do you have to say?
1 goal for Evander Kane in the
Yeah,
series against
there you
Colorado.
go. And that was a big X factor because he was lighting up the lamp constantly leading into that.
Connor McDavid, 7 points in a sweep.
I mean, he's McJesus for a reason. I mean, nothing will stop him. Truly, the only thing that will stop him is the team around him. That is the only thing that'll stop Connor McDavid. Unfortunately,
yeah, having a goalie with a .872 save percentage doesn't help.
No. Smith just got absolutely shelled. And again, I was not happy when they brought him back to begin with. But again, Edmonton knows the drill. They had a coaching change mid-season. They had a lot of things going on. Regardless, I'm happy that they got as far as they did. Would have liked a more valiant effort there in the Western Conference Finals. But again, that's here nor there. It doesn't matter anymore. What does matter, however, is that the Avalanche are destined to be matching up with either the Rangers or the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. And it's, the Avalanche have the number on the Rangers during the season. And yes, Igor was not a part of those games for the most part. And yes, the Rangers were not locked in the way that they are now. Well aware of that. And I do believe that should the Rangers get to that dance, that they will have a more valiant effort from Edmonton. However, regardless on if it's the Rangers or Tampa, I mean, I will be sad. Don't get me wrong. I will be heartbroken if the Rangers go to the Cup and lose. Don't get me wrong, especially depending on how the series goes. But if you're going to lose, the Avalanche are by all means a great team to lose to. They were the best team in the regular season. They were just high flying. This team has been destined for greatness for years now. It's been a 4 to 5 year span, I would say, with Sakic at GM and with, their head coach now too, after Patrick Waugh. And they've just have dealt with endless injuries, inconsistent goaltending. And while goaltending is still the biggest factor, in my opinion, and that's where Igor could come to shine should the Rangers get to that far. However, when you have Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Nazem Kadri, and everyone else, I mean, that team is just absolutely loaded, and they have an element to their game that even with Carolina, how well they played during the season, Carolina wasn't on the Avs level. I think you said that Carolina was the biggest team for you this year, but for me, there really wasn't much of a doubt that
I think Carolina would have been the biggest threat to the Colorado Avalanche with the way they play defense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's why it's going to be so interesting to see if Tampa or the Rangers advance,
By the way, you mentioned Kreider. He's out for the postseason with a broken thumb.
Oh, when did he sustain that injury?
He was checked into the boards by Evander Kane.
Oh, shit. What game was that? Was that
game 3, I think?
Game 3? Okay, I must have missed that because I have not been – if I haven't been able to watch the Ranger games consistently because my trip, I sure as hell wasn't watching those games consistently either.
And Darcy Kemper was out of the last couple of games because of blurred vision that came back. He was hit in the eye, of course.
I remember the stick got in his mask. Mm-hmm. That was a freaky situation.
But the Colorado Avalanche going up against either the Rangers or the Lightning, to me, it doesn't really matter that much for what I'm going to say next, but the matchup in the Stanley Cup Final is going to bring back memories of Super Bowl 48.
And enlighten us on how Super Bowl 48 transpired, Steven.
Super Bowl 48 was the Seattle Seahawks against the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos that season were the number one offense. They set records for most touchdowns, most passing yards, every possible offensive metric that they could get the record in, they got the record in that season. Touchdown passes by Peyton Manning. They went up against the number one defense in the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks won the Super Bowl 43-8.
Yeah, they dominate. I mean, when I watched that game, and this isn't to get on a tangent, but talking about Eli and Peyton was the better overall quarterback, but Eli was always the more clutch. Peyton never impressed me enough when it came to big games, what I mattered most, the way that Eli did. And I'm not a fan, so I don't got bias there. I'm just saying.
Peyton Manning was people are gonna hate me for this. Peyton Manning was an elite regular season quarterback.
Yeah, he was, 100%. And don't get me wrong, he didn't have the best teams around him, especially he struggled in his early years with the defense that he had structured with the Colts. But I mean, even when he won his first Super Bowl, he's facing Rex Grossman with the Chicago Bears. Devin Hester was the story that season. Then you saw when they lost to the Saints, give him the benefit of the doubt because the Saints, that's when they were doing the bounty hunters type stuff, head hunting the QBs, paid like illegally what they were doing. And then in that game, that was just a complete blowout. I mean, Broncos never
And
stood a
then
chance. It was over.
he had the blowout against the Seahawks. And then the second Super Bowl he won was the infamous Super Bowl 50, where Cam Newton refused to jump on a ball.
Yeah, and that wasn't Peyton single-handedly dominating that game either. He did not have a Super Bowl.
That
at
was
all.
Von Miller. Yeah, Von Miller won that Super Bowl. But look,
so, getting away from that.
I'm not saying Colorado cannot win the Stanley Cup final against the Rangers or the Tampa Bay Lightning defense, but it's going to be a different matchup for them. They're going to have to go up against a Norris caliber defenseman in either Fox or Hedman. And I'm talking about defensive Norris quality, not Kale McCarr is a great defenseman, don't get me wrong, but defensively, he's not close to Fox or Hedman or even Yossi. I think the Colorado Avalanche have a chance to win, but it's not going to be as easy as going up against Mike Smith.
No, it will not. And that'll be the biggest test. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I feel like it's the automatic jinx. We're just letting you guys know. The Avalanche are the team that whoever is advancing will be facing. And it will be anything but an easy task, in my opinion.
Before we get into questions, just to give people a little bit more confidence going into tonight's game, or even the other games in the series. In 1987, the NHL switched their playoff format to 7-game series for the first round. Before that, the first round was always a best of 5. Since the NHL went to 4 rounds of best of 7s in 1987, teams to win games 1 and 2 at home before losing game 3 on the road are 80-19 to win the series.
Wow. So it's a little lopsided, Steven. Just a little.
So an 80 to 81% chance that the Rangers win this series.
I like those odds. However, if we were a betting man, we all would have lost our however dough we threw out when the Rangers were losing 3-1.
Look, I don't bet on sports because I don't know. I don't like it. If I would, I would always bet on the team that's playing the Rangers, because you can never lose that way. Either you're happy that your team won, or you're happy that you want to bet.
Yep. That's fair. I respect that. Okay, well, in a nutshell, the Rangers have big game coming up tonight. Of course, Game 4 against these Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa, and then they'll head back home to MSG for Game 5, and from there, the goal, I think, what will be is we'll probably record as long as scheduling is good, and fingers crossed that will be after game. I would say after Game 5. Because we don't know what the stats of the Rangers will be by then. They could either be advancing to the Stanley Cup Finals, they could be finding themselves still grinding out this series by all means. But no less. So now let's get into your comments, because I think those are important. There were a couple donations here in the live show that I would like to address first. But outside of that, folks, if you have specific questions, if you were chiming in the live stream here for Rangers Review episode 59 that you would like us to answer, by all means, ask away. We'll spend a good, I would say 10 minutes on them, and then we'll wrap up the show and just hope, fingers crossed, that next time we talk, we have, more exciting things regarding the Rangers to be discussing. But Jimmy here with the $5 donation, thank you kindly for that, Jimmy. He says, way to many neutral zone and breakout passes for turnovers in Game 3. Way too many. Fox and Trouba have to be better than Game 3. Panarin and Kopp must get going. I agree with you wholeheartedly on line 2. That is the biggest thing that I'm looking for, and I'm really curious again how that's going to shape up given the current status of Strome, Goudreau, and Sammy Blake practicing now too. I agree a little bit on Fox and Trouba. I think that's a tad more on Trouba than it is on Fox. However, again, rightful criticisms. I think that's fair. Is there anything that you would like to add on to this, Jimmy? I mean, not Jimmy, Steven. I know. How do you blame me for calling you Jimmy when the guy's name is Jimmy?
Like I said, Trouba had his worst game as a Ranger 2 nights ago. He's not going to play that bad again.
Knocking on wood, Steven. We're knocking on wood. Okay. Jimmy with another donation, and this was the other one. Tampa hasn't shown me anything to be afraid of. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Especially the games in New York, they have not shown to me that they can keep up with us.
Yep. And that's what's so crazy about the fact that's not even like that this is round one. You know, whoever wins this one goes to the damn cup, baby. Like that's a big effing deal, you know? Like so either Tampa's gonna completely turn their game around. We'll see if Point does return this series. I have no clue if he will or not. I don't know how John Cooper's going to go about things either, if he's going to go the Gallant way and maybe keep things uncertain. And then out of nowhere, you just see him coming out on the ice. Anything's possible in playoffs. You know, everyone's getting cortisone shots left and right to just numb out, regardless of what their injury is. They're just going out there and they're going to continue to play. So, Point, in my opinion, is that huge piece for Tampa. If they get him back with this series still being salvageable for them, we may have ourselves a bit of an issue. However, if we don't, then that's something that the Rangers can look at and be like, okay, you know, that we're very much riding things out. And it's not the fact that the Rangers can't beat Tampa with Point. They've done it before. They can gladly do it again. But
Yeah.
there's no denying that Braden Point is not just a phenomenal player, but he is just simply electric in playoffs. Like he is meant for playoff hockey. He is locked in like no tomorrow.
So interesting with the three teams that are left, right?
Yes.
Either the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to win their fourth cup in 20 years, or the Colorado Avalanche are going to win their third in 25, or the Rangers are going to win their fifth in 100 years.
It's all about the present, baby. It's all about the present.
I just want to be Tampa because I'm already dreading the headlines about Pat Maroon.
Oh my God, yeah. Again though, talk about riding a wave. Talk about being like in the right place at the right time. Pat isn't a bad player. I know that he's not single-handedly going out there and helping winning cups. Yes, he had that game winner for them in St. Louis, but outside of that, you know, he's been a very fortunate player these past couple of years.
With all due respect, because he is an NHL player and he's a damn good hockey player in the grand scheme of things, you know, to get to the NHL.
Absolutely.
You have to be a top 0.1% hockey player in the world. But Pat Maroon might go down as the worst player to win 3 consecutive Stanley Cups.
Oh, absolutely. If Tampa somehow turns around this series and they end up going on to the cup and winning it, I mean, yeah, there's no denying that. But again, if I'm in his shoes, by God, that's the best label I could ever get. I mean, like, I don't think he isn't complaining for 1 second.
I would sign up for that and not care. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, so let's see. Dominic here with the donation from from Switzerland. Thank you so much for that. Keep going, guys. Let's go Rangers. Fingers crossed, Dom. Thank you so much for chiming in for the donation. I appreciate that. Steven, do you know what their currency translates to in American dollars? Because I have no clue.
CHF is Swiss francs.
Okay.
The abbreviation CH is the abbreviation for the country of Switzerland. It means Confederación Helvética. So you learned something now.
I just did.
I think 10 francs is about maybe $8. Let me quickly look this.
Yeah, we don't need deep dive. I'm just curious because I know that we got Mr. Europe over here. I figure that he at least has a little bit of better knowledge than I do.
It's actually $10. It's pretty even.
Oh wow, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate that a lot, Dom.
I'm curious. Maybe Dominic can share in the chat where in Switzerland he's from.
Yeah, if he's willing, by all means, ask ahead. But let's get us some comments here before we wrap things up here in today's show. Appreciate everyone that's been listening to Rangers Reviewed episode 59. Let's see. Do you guys think that 3 p.m. games could be a factor of the Rangers' sloppy play in Game 3? I got to be honest. I don't think it has much of a factor. I'm the guy that normally doesn't like day games, especially if it's like a Sunday game. They just up until this season, the Rangers have not thrived with them. This year is a little bit different, though, too. I don't think that was much of a factor because at the end of the day, the Rangers beat themselves. They should have won Game 3, and they fell flat.
Can I answer this question and debunk it?
Sure.
In this season, the Rangers coming into last game, Sunday's game, the Rangers were 7-2 in afternoon games.
This season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And even when they were 7-2, I still felt on edge. I still did because I found myself, unfortunately and hypocritically, still thinking about years past.
It's like the whole player scoring their first NHL goal against us feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Rangers have the third lowest first NHL goal scored against them in the salary cap era.
Oh, wow. Well, there you go.
You know who has the most?
Who?
The team that concedes the most first career NHL goals are the New Jersey Devils.
Of course. Perfectly balanced as all things should be. Let's see. Let's get to a couple more comments here. Um, what happened to the instigator penalty? It's like gone. We don't really need to go on this tangent.
No, no,
It's been
we had it.
called.
We had it a couple of games ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has been called. It's
Um,
it's one of those things where, like most officiating in the NHL, it's just inconsistent. It doesn't happen every time that it should happen, but when they do actually see it, it does happen, and the Rangers have benefited from that throughout playoffs.
let me
They actually have gone
let me
though.
check quickly. I think it happened in the Carolina series.
I think it did too.
Or was it in the Penguin series? Let me. No, I think it was the Penguin series. There was
Oh, wait, wasn't it on Rodriguez?
Yeah, I think it was Rodriguez. Let me check. Um. By the way, we'll move on to the next question while I look this up. By the way.
Sure. He Dominic said he is from I don't want to say this wrong.
Basel. Okay.
Basel. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first city from Othman's father and uncle.
That
Love
is
to hear that.
actually the reason I asked, because I know Othman's family lived in Switzerland, and that's why Othman has a Swiss passport.
There you go. See,
That's how
Dominic, the words
Othman
out of
was
your mouth.
able. That's how Othman was able to play in Switzerland before he turned 18.
Yep, exactly. Very cool.
Basel. Okay, I've been to Zurich, I've been to Basel, I've been to Davos. So I need
Oh,
to
by the
pick
way, they're saying in the chat that it was the Kane series. Maybe it happened twice for the
Haynes.
Rangers then in playoffs. Because I felt almost certain
Um,
that it happened at least one in the Penn series with Rodriguez.
that must have been after the Jarvis hit then.
Player went after Trouba after. Yes. Yeah, it has to be. I'm almost certain because I obviously remember that.
This- Okay, I'm looking it up now, but yeah, move on to the next question.
Okay.
All right.
Jimmy says, Stat Boy, the Rangers have historically been bad in matinee games. What is their matinee record over the last 20 years? So you can keep your research going, Steven, while I
That
answer some more.
I need more time for that, because
Okay.
websites don't tend to keep up the puck drop times once the season ends.
Trust me, Jimmy, this is something that'll give Steve an incentive to look up another random statistic. So even if it's not during the show, rest assured he'll have it at some point for you. So don't worry. Let's see. Another comment here. Why is Tampa such a good matchup for the Rangers? Obviously, the Canes defense got the Rangers, but what about Tampa and possibly Colorado, since they are an offensive heavy team? Well, I mean, I don't think we should look too ahead of Colorado. Again, we got to get there first. I think that's really important to say. I'm the last person that's trying to jinx anything here. When it comes to Tampa, though, I think it's kind of just what Steven has alluded to and myself already earlier in the show. Their lack of neutral zone presence has definitely hurt them so far this series, in my opinion.
And also a big reason is that their players are not fast enough. So when they try to hit us, the hits don't connect.
Yeah, I agree
I've
too.
noticed that a couple of times. By the way, Game 4 against Carolina, Steven Lawrence got 5 minutes for fighting, 2-minute instigator, and a 10-minute misconduct.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Someone said that it was Steven Lawrence.
And Frank Vatrano scored on that ensuing power play.
Yes, he did. Yep, I remember that. Awesome. Okay, folks. Well, I think we're just going to be about wrapping up today's show. But before we do, I was going to say, let's talk about Rangers' history of the number 59, given that is the history. It is episode 59 of the pod. But I'm almost certain the Rangers have never worn that jersey number. If they have, enlighten me, Steven, but I'm pretty confident when I say that, at least in my lifetime as a fan. No bueno.
In official games, no Ranger has ever worn number 59, but in 2014.
Don't even say it. It was a preseason. Can you tell me the position of the player?
Center.
How long was he a Ranger?
5 years.
2014 preseason center.
Sorry, 2013. No, wait, 2014. Yes. No, I'm right, 2014.
And he's not on the Rangers anymore, obviously.
No. From 2014 to 2019, he was on the Rangers.
It's got to be bottom six center, obviously, then. Hold on. Let me think for a minute. Damn. Who was on here as a bottom six center for 5 years? I'm blanking on right now. And they parted with him, I'm sure, in the start of the rebuild.
Yes.
Okay.
And they traded him at the deadline in 2019.
That's not helping, Steven.
They traded him for Brandon Lemieux and a first-round pick.
Oh, Hayes. Okay, gotcha.
Kevin Hayes.
There you go.
Kevin Hayes.
All
In
right.
the 2014 preseason, Kevin Hayes wore number 59.
I was
Funny
stuck
sto-
thinking bottom 6 for whatever reason.
Funny story about that Kevin Hayes trade, by the way. Part of the trade was a 2022 fourth-round pick.
Yeah.
It was a conditional fourth-round pick. The condition was that the Rangers would get the pick if Kevin Hayes signed an extension in Winnipeg.
And he
He
did not.
didn't. So the fourth-round pick went back to Winnipeg, which they then traded to Vegas in exchange for Paul Stastny.
Okay.
And then Vegas traded that pick to the Rangers for Brett Howden. So we ended up with the pick anyway.
Wow. Look at you. That's like the tree breakdown, connecting the dots. That's hilarious.
As far as I know, that's the only draft pick that has been traded to the Rangers twice.
Got to put money on that draft pick. Whoever the Rangers pick there in the 4th round, he's going to be an absolute stud. And it's going to be so fun to break down all the history behind that. He
It's
was
like
inevitable.
Ryan Callahan being drafted with a pick we got from San Jose for Mark Messier.
Yep. And how many games did Mark Messier play for San Jose? A 0. It never happened.
But that was the compensatory draft pick era.
That was absurd. The fact that players were able to do that was absolutely
it was a wild west.
Asinine.
See, nobody remembers that Mike Richter was traded to the Edmonton Oilers either.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
But that just to show you how dumb the Edmonton Oilers were. It's not a recent thing. So they traded for Mike Richter. I think they traded a 4th-round pick to the Rangers. Then they didn't sign him. So as compensation, they received a 3rd-round pick. They used that 3rd-round pick on a player from the Czech Republic that did not declare for the draft, so the pick didn't count. The pick was scrapped. They weren't allowed to pick again.
That's funny. There you go. Well, I think that's a great way of capping this one off. So, guys, thank you all so much for listening, watching, whether in the live stream here on Rangers Review on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts for the recorded version. Hopefully, the Rangers look good tonight in Game 4 and throughout the remainder of the series. But until then, we'll hopefully be back after
Game 5. Do you want to do predictions for Game 4, Tyler?
Predictions, Steven? Did we do predictions at all in playoffs? I don't think we did. I can't, Steven. I'm not.
Okay.
That's the ultimate jinx, Steven. You don't, even if you don't believe in jinxes, you don't do it for playoffs.
There's no such thing as a jinx.
No, Steven. Stop it. All right, I'm out of here. Stop with the nonsense. Have a great rest of your day, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rangers Review episode 59. We'll see you back in a little bit. And of course, Steven, let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.